are here to talk about this amazing audio-first platform called Audible, and our panel is called Unmuted, Black Voices Amplifying Audio's New Frontier. This conversation is all about how we tell our stories from our point of view, how we flip them, how we make them our own, and how we can partner with incredible brands who will fund our storytelling, amen? I said fund, amen? All right, okay, because I know some of us have some amazing stories and we would love to partner with great brands. So I've got two incredible artists here who are gonna tell us about their experience. First up, help me welcome the mind behind The Prophecy, a hit Audible Originals series that just debuted in its second season that takes us deep into questions of faith, survival, and destiny. Welcome, Randy McKinnon.
Don't make it turn into trouble, 'cause we coming straight out the jungle.
Hey, Randy! And then we have the writer of the new Audible original, All Things Undone, a bold reimagining of what happens when the oppressed rise and rewrite the rules of power. Please help me welcome Chené Lawson. Looking gorgeous. Hi, y'all.
How's it going? How's it going?
Welcome to CultureCon.
Yes.
Is this y'all's first time?
Yeah, first time.
Yeah, I've never been here. Super excited.
I love this. Well, we're so excited to get into your amazing Audible Originals. To start, both of you, tell me about your latest Audible Original production. What is it about and what inspired it? Randy, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so my project, you just heard a snippet of it. It's called The Prophecy. I'm starring Kerry Washington. We just premiered our second season actually this week. But essentially what it does is it reimagines the Bible actually set in present day. Wow. And it asks the question, what if the events of the Bible is actually happening again in contemporary sense?
Wow.
So that was the basis of it.
That's amazing. And tell me a little bit about how you got in touch with Audible and really talk me through that process.
Oh, me?
No, you, and then I want to hear about yours and how you got in touch.
Thank you for your chivalry.
Yeah, I think the process with Audible was really great because typically most of my work is done in TV and film, which is more of a visual medium. And so with this one, I created this during COVID. So it was during a time where we weren't able to go out and be in production. So I was looking for a platform to be able to create with Carrie and I. We were trying to look for something to collaborate on. And what we realized is with Audible is that it gave you an opportunity to not only be able to still tell stories, but you were able to go in different locations because it's an audio experience. And so literally it felt like it was limitless. And so it really gave us a great opportunity to build stories still.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And Chené, I want to hear all about the Audible Original, All Things Undone. Congratulations. Where did this idea come from for you?
Yeah, okay. So, All Things Undone is basically a podcast about where I ask, what if black people couldn't have been killed during the time of slavery in America? Wow. So it kind of reimagines history. But the impetus of the idea actually came from, I was watching Ryan Coogler's Black Panther, and I have to say that movie really changed the way my mind kind of wrapped itself around our culture, because we're not used to being able to see black people platformed with so much agency and so much like, oh, we can be superheroes, we can be fantastic like that. And so after I saw that, my mind just kind of did this little flip, and I woke up one day and I said, well, what if? And piggybacking on what you were saying about the what if, I think what if is a really powerful medium for your imagination.
I love that.
Because when you ask what if, you expand your, what you know to be real, and you go beyond that. And I think it's a really good exercise in creativity. But I have to say that my journey was probably a little bit different because I had to just figure it out.
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody backing me. I was just like, okay, well, it's COVID. COVID has hit. I have this idea. I tried to pitch it to some short film producers, and the short film producers were like, oh, no, we can't do that. That's going to cost too much. And me being just I don't know, kind of no, that's not going to work for me. I said, okay, well, how can I do this? Because it was a vision that I had to see through. And so I pivoted, and I said, okay, if I make it into a podcast, I can get this done. And so I pulled a bunch of friends. Like I have a huge arsenal of friends who are actors. I asked favors. I borrowed people from different audio places, and we went and like got recording studio time, and I just had to make it happen.
Wow.
And yeah, and it was just amazing to see like, oh, I can actually do this on my own.
Yes.
I don't need to have a production company like backing me and making this happen. I can actually do this.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that idea because I think a lot of people right now are stuck in between seasons of yes and waiting for someone to say yes to their idea and their vision, but you figured out a way to say, well, if you're not gonna say yes, I'm gonna give myself a yes.
Exactly.
And create this either way, and I think that's amazing. Are there creatives in here waiting for yes? Waiting for a yes? And then how many people just started doing things themselves and are not waiting for a yes? Make some noise for yourselves, because that is a big thing to do. You're very close to be sitting up here with these amazing people when you actually bet on yourself. And Randy, you not only bet on yourself, you guys are both powerhouses in the entertainment industry, which is hard to do, but you have a powerhouse cast as well. Kerry Washington, Giancarlo Esposito, Dwelle Hill. How did their performances shape or shift your vision of the prophecy?
Yeah, it was first it was humbling, you know, like Carrie, you know, as many of you know, she's done some most amazing things that we've seen and known her for. And the same with Giancarlo Esposito. You know, Breaking Bad is one of my favorite TV shows, and so when you see these people bringing your words to life in a way, you know, it changes the way you think about even the way as a creative, you know, because they're so intelligent, right?
Yes.
I always think a great actor is a great investigator. And so like they're really always trying to understand the subtext. They're always trying to get into the why of the choices that you're making. And it really was a masterclass and an experience for me to be able to bring that stuff to life. And so for me, just watching them, you know, audio space is different. I like to say it's like ADR theater in a way, where it's like, you know, you get to strip away all the vulnerability. It's no sets. It's just literally sitting outside of a room and you get to see it. And so for me, watching these people who are titans in their own respective ways, seeing them bring that stuff to life, it was just a beautiful experience. And I think for those that get a chance to listen, I think, you know, most people when they think of Audible, you think of like a book,
Yes.
which in many ways it is. But I think what's unique about this experience is that this is one of the ways that we said, like, you want to feel like you're actually listening to a movie or listening to a TV show while you're driving in your car, while you're sitting at the house. And because in many ways, and we won't have enough time to get into it today, you're going to realize that when you try to get the larger yes, you know, it comes with the many smaller battles that you have to go into. And in our industry, you know, when you have a black cast, right, predominantly black class, a black creator that's coming in saying, well, this original TV show would cost $100 million, and I want you to allow us to carry it. They say, no, we're going to typically bring in someone that doesn't look like you, that doesn't reflect the experiences that you have. And so what Audible actually gives you a chance to do is you can come in and create that stuff, create the IP, and now you walk into the studios not saying, will you do this? You say, we're going to do this. And it's a much different approach that you can do. So I think people should really, really start to look into it as a new medium and a new opportunity to be able to tell these beautiful stories that many ways in this industry doesn't allow you to do often.
That's a really beautiful point. Like you said, a lot of us listen to audio books on Audible, but rarely get into full storytelling on there. And so I love that they're building out this original programming where your ideas, because creatives have more than one idea. You can have a story that might be much better allowing people to hear it than actually see it. So I love that you have this new platform to do this through, but y'all have been working with them for a while.
Yeah.
Today, All Things Undone flips history on its head. And you said, what if? And I think one of the ways that we are surviving this moment is by asking what if, allowing our imaginations to take us to the future in a better future, to create a better future. So how did you approach the research and writing process to balance fact, fiction, and imagination? What did you feel like you had to honor? And then what did you feel like you really wanted to flip on its head?
Yeah, so one of the main things, because it's set in Mississippi in 1850s.
Wow.
And so I wanted to make sure that I honored the fact that, okay, what are the basic things that are existing in that time? Like, what are the weapons? What is the language? What are the terms that they use for, like, plantation owners and such? But the biggest thing that I wanted to pivot from was the language. I know that there's a certain way that we're supposed to believe that we spoke when we were enslaved people, but I decided, you know what? Why do we have to adhere to whatever it is they tell us, what our colloquialisms were? And I kind of pivoted and made it more of a poetic, kind of Shakespearean way of speaking, kind of like, are you familiar with Deadwood? Yes. Yeah. So there's a different way that they speak.
Yes.
I got to play a lot with that.
I love that.
Right?
That's dope.
I love that. That's dope. And was there a specific scene or moment in history that you were the most excited to flip?
That's an interesting question. Well, no, but the interesting thing is that, so basically the premise of All Things Undone is there's an astrological event that occurs. It's an eclipse. And when the eclipse happens, all the DNA of every single human being on the planet is altered. Black people can no longer be killed. There's also Native Americans are now invisible, and Mesoamericans can walk through walls. So it's almost like a multicultural, supernatural superhero,
Wow.
if you will. But I say all that to say that the event that I later ended up finding out is that Nate Turner, the man that they tell us is the only one that rebelled, when we in fact know that there was many people that rebelled. I later found out that he had a vision of an eclipse, and to him, that signified to him that blackness was about to overtake something.
Wow.
So, yeah, and so it's interesting how that became like I had no idea that had happened, and yet it's kind of interwoven in my story.
That's a really powerful legacy, and a very beautiful way to honor it, even if it's subconsciously, just unknowingly, like how those things come together. You all have such beautiful ways to allow your stories to come through audio. For people who are maybe new to that experience, why was an audio first Audible Original program something that you thought, hey, I can do this, and this is something that will make an impact? Why did you choose to do audio? Because, you know, we live in a visual world. Visuals are everything. People probably made their outfits based off a visual they saw, you know, on a video or something today. I'm seeing a lot of good visual aesthetics today. No, you said no. You said I woke up like this. This is how oh, okay. You are the visuals. I get it. I hear you. But when you think of audio first, why is that something that as creatives we should consider?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is access, right? You get an amazing access point. I think what's really great that Audible does, there's many programs and many ways in which creatives, you know, with stories to tell that often are bigger in scope and size and that are niche, right? A lot of times that used to be celebrated, but right now that sort of being in many ways is trying to be stifled in many ways, especially within a mainstream. And the biggest point is getting access, right? These actors, these really large actors who in many ways, maybe if you had a movie script or a TV script that you might not have the reps or someone to be able to get to these people, now you have an opportunity where you can come in and have that same access with them doing your podcast, right? With them doing your Audible content. But then at the same time, you're building a relationship. So now you're going to the market now with, as an executive producer, right? Because what you have to start realizing is that, when you... Credits, exactly. Because a lot of times, it's like a catch-22, right? They'll tell you that, hey, well, you're going to need to have your own show to be able to create a show. They're going to say, well, you need to have an agent to be able to sell something. And you say, well, how do I get an agent? And say, well, you need to sell something. And then it's like you start to feel confused. And it starts to sit and say, well, how do I get in? And this gives you an opportunity. There's so many creatives who didn't have reps, who didn't have a first credit, who was now able to create projects that they ended up selling for features and for television, because even with Audible, they have an entire program of development that literally takes your stuff from script to screen that you can help build your platform. So you can take a podcast and sell it as a TV series and sell it as a feature, but now you're an executive producer on it. And what you'll realize is a different vibe.
You listening, sis, you about to have you a good TV show, okay? Like, what he's saying is, this is a way to get your stories to television and film eventually. Like, if you're really thinking about how hard it is to find an agent, to find someone to pitch your show to, this is a new level of access that allows us as creatives who look like us to create a new way to tell our stories. And I think that's amazing.
1,000%.
Yes. Okay, so I want to get back into the shows because they're both so good. And they both feel timely, like especially yours, but they're very timely stories. For you, which parts of the story specifically feel like they're in direct conversation with the world and what we're living through right now? How have you been processing everything that's going on with what you just put out into the world? What do you hope your project is saying about this moment?
Yeah, so I just have to say it was really terrifying for me as a writer, and I don't know if other writers feel this. When you write something that is as, I don't know, polarizing as All Things Undone could possibly be, it brings out a level of fear. At least for me it did. I'll just speak for myself. I was like, oh my God, it's COVID right now. I'm about to put out something that's really kind of, I don't know, in certain people's opinions, is political, is about racism. George Floyd has just had this whole movement behind him. I did not want to put it out. I was like, I don't think that this is the time. I don't know if this is going to be right. I don't know if it's going to get me in some way harmed because people are pissed off about black people talking about their history. I don't know. And so, but I had no choice because COVID had hit and I didn't have, like, I had savings in the bank, but I had to keep working. And so I was like, you know what? I got to do it. So I did it, put just walked out on a plank and did it. And it ended up just taking off. It went viral. And I think it was because the moment and also because of what people were feeling, that it somehow just resonated with a lot of people. And because of that, it ended up going #1 on Apple. And I just want to piggyback on something that you said. For me, when I put that out there, it took off. And then I got an email from someone at Audible saying, I would like to not only contract you to make the rest of your season, because all I had was 2 episodes. They were 15-minute episodes, 2 of them, that's it. And then I got hit up by Audible. They're like, hey, not only would I like you to complete that season, but I would also like you to adapt 2 stories from N.K. Jemisin. And N.K. Jemisin, for those of you that may or may not know, she is an Afro-futuristic sci-fi writer. She is the best she's the best sci-fi writer right now of our generation. She's earned 3 Hugo Awards for science fiction writing.
Wow.
Anyway, and then I got to adapt that work, which was an honor and a privilege to be able to do.
Yeah, I'll just sort of jump on that because I think, you know, those who, when you like what the prophecy really is and what it says, the show, you know, Kerry Washington plays the Virgin Mary. And so if you just play that story out, essentially what the conversation that's saying behind it is that, like, in the 2nd season that you see, she's now giving birth. And so many ways, a lot of the conversation people came out and said was that, so what you're saying, trying to say is that, you know, Jesus is black, and what you're trying to say in those stories, right, in those conversations. And so when we get in this conversation about timeliness of today, you know, the inspiration behind the prophecy, like I read this book called Righteous Discontent. If you haven't read it, it's an amazing book. But what it speaks about is the role in which, you know, many people think about the progressive era, which is like in the 1800s, like the 1920s, right, when women's rights to vote. But a lot of times we kind of have a very small, slighted sense of the role that women, especially black women, played in the policy, like the church. Like the way we look at church now, right, when politics, you always notice they go to the church and they always like a major point. But the reason that became so was because in the 1920s, like, the group of many black women who were these activists came in and started to literally push that movement. And so what's interesting is that, like, if you think about it even today, a lot of the history was sort of removed. W.E.B. Du Bois tried to keep that alive, but in many ways they tried to remove it. But the experience wasn't a dichotomous experience, right? Because in many ways, this was some of the worst periods of time, but at the same time, it was also the most radical because much of the change happened. And then when I sort of think about it today, and Carrie and I was talking about it, it's like, when you look at culture and black culture today, right? Even I look at people like yourself sitting on here, it's so much progress still being made, yet it feels like, as a sense of a black woman, you're still fighting these extreme battles, right? That hasn't necessarily left, and it almost feels even more intense. And so for us, the show was literally trying to mirror that experience beneath that. right? And trying to create the genre. Like it's a sci-fi, it has all this, psychological thriller, but if you strip away the genre, what we're trying to explore is that same conversation of not only this woman that's coming in saying, I'm giving birth, but yet it's through this immaculate conception, right? She's fighting most of the season to be believed and to be heard when she's saying that, hey, I have this divine intervention, and I'm telling you, this world is going to hell right now, but I'm telling you the answer, and it starts to mirror a lot of conversations we've heard a lot lately,
right?
Without going too deep into that.
Wow.
But so that was a big part of it for me.
That's amazing. I think, well, yes, clap it up, yeah. I love that people are so passionate, and you are so passionate about creating these conversations. Both of you all have beautiful stories that are very timely, and it's almost like an escape when you think about it. Like, my timeline is a mess on my timeline, and I'm like, I'm trying not to live in fear. I'm trying not to live in anything that is not truly supposed to be for me in this moment, while also using my voice for good, while also allowing my faith to lead me instead of my fear, allowing my creativity to flow. What do you all do as creatives to stay in flow with what you actually want to say and create, while not making sure that you are being over-consumers or being a part of the overconsumption that happens on social media, on everything? How do you all make sure that you all are having a pure creative experience and staying focused on what you're here to create?
I can piggyback off of that. Well, for me, I meditate. I need to find my peace.
Yes.
And I know that the other day I went on Instagram and I saw this video that was circulating with Gil Scott-Heron, and he was saying, he's one of the famous poets and singers who said, the revolution will not be televised. But essentially what he meant by that is that the revolution will not occur just on TV. It first has to happen inside of you.
That's
you
right.
have to have a revolution in your mind and your spirit.
I know that's right.
And basically what he was saying is that you have to find peace in yourself, even if there's chaos going on around you. And in my opinion, finding peace right now is an act of revolution,
That's dope.
That's so good. Yeah, you can clap that up.
For
Finding
sure.
peace right now is an act of revolution. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. And I think the biggest thing for me, especially with writing, is that I actually think my answer is a little opposite in a way, is that, like, I don't necessarily try to write to protest. I actually try to write to escape. And I think a lot of times what I often find myself being frustrated by within the industry is that oftentimes when I am trying to express my experience, it usually is funneled through the way of trauma and through stress and through all those things. And like, that's the point. I'm like, people don't actually want to sit down and be told the same thing that they're seeing right outside of their doors.
Yes.
And so a lot of times, a lot of my stuff is escapism. I actually believe that Black culture is genre in itself. And so for me, like, if you listen to it, you'll be like, oh, it's like, I'm actually trying to say the opposite. I'm actually trying to explore worlds beyond what we're often shown to live in and exist in. And for me, that's the way that I actually stay grounded. Because when I'm writing, I'm escaping. And so even though it's a bit of this very optimistic sort of perspective, whenever I'm not writing is when I feel the most stress. Because I'm kind of looking out, and then it's like when I am creating, I feel that.
That's a great point. I mean, I think a lot of the times we as creatives, when we are not creating, we feel anxious and overwhelmed. Like, there's so many things that happen when we're doing or not doing what we're meant to do. And so I love that you all have those processes. I want to get into process by this moment, these Audible Originals that came to life. And I know you all have worked with them for a while, but take me through that first project. How long was the timeline between, like, writing, pitching, approval, and then putting it out? Because some of us, we get caught up in the, wait, you said 5 years. What, like, what?
Yeah.
What is that true behind the scenes of how these even come together?
Yeah, what I'll say is, so the first season of this happened during COVID, so I actually had a different thing, and I think the message within that, I would just say just off the top is just, a lot of times we almost ask God a lot for our opportunities and for our moments, and we spend a lot of times praying for it, and then sometimes when it happens right there, you're actually not even ready, because you spend most of the time saying what isn't happening rather than preparing yourself for when it does happen. And so
I know that's right, yeah.
And so for me, that was a similar experience. But with the prophecy, I found, I knew Carrie's team because they were trying to work with me on a different project in film. And so when I created this idea, I called Carrie and I said, hey, I pitched it, and I pitched it to their team. But the issue was it was COVID, and they were like, well, we love this, but she would have to film this in about 2 weeks, kind of from that time. So I had to write the whole show in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And so that's not even like a flex. That's actually more stressful even thinking about it.
Yeah, that's not a flex.
But the process of it though, like it moved pretty quickly, right? Where it's like, and I think that's the upside too, because I'm pretty sure you all have projects that you've been trying to pitch people, and it's like are you waiting for the phone call back, or they hit you with I'm gonna hit you, we're gonna link up, and it's like you start to feel like, man, it's like it's moving so slow, and it's like, but the upside of this was that they were ready to go.
Wow.
And it was like they were ready to move, and so there are some opportunities for you to be able to do that. You just have to be ready for it, and I guess if there's anything before we leave out of this is that I believe there's obviously you all are here, there's so many stories we want to tell, but I would say create the thing as if it's already being made. That's how my mom used to always tell me, and it takes a leap of faith, but if you don't invest in yourself first, you can't expect for someone else to. And so I already came to them like, hey, I'm trying to create this show, rather than saying like, hey, if I find the money, then I'll be able to build this, right? And so I think that was one of the biggest things with Audible, is that it actually encourages you to sort of come in ready, because they have the infrastructure to be able to mobilize on that.
Wow.
So I think it's cool.
That's amazing. I love how you really weaved in faith to that, and the importance of not just praying for what you want, but actually preparing and finishing the things that you say you want to have.
Faith
That's
without
really
works,
important.
for sure.
Wow. Thank you for that. And I forget the question that I asked because I was listening. What do you remember what I asked?
The process, basically.
The process. Chené, take us through the first process.
Well,
that was such a great, I was sitting there like,
I know. I did not write mine in 2 weeks, Randy. It took me 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, from inception to 12 episodes later. Yeah, we got the deal in 2022. Maybe it took 3 years.
Okay.
But
Yes.
the whole process,
Took
it was
3 years.
enduring. It was not an easy thing. But
Yes.
when you're creating, as you know, a huge world that doesn't exist, and all of these characters and this huge landscape, it was not going to be an easy journey, but it was also pretty cathartic, I have to say, because I don't know about you, but when I write, I put myself into my main characters. And so,
Yes.
like, if my main character is going through some sort of thing, I ended up healing my own stuff by writing this stuff down. So it was pretty cathartic. But yeah, it took about 3 years. Not easy.
That's right.
But worth it. Definitely worth it.
Definitely worth it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love talking to you all so much, and I could talk to you all for literally hours more, but I want to wrap this up on looking ahead. What excites you most about your specific careers and then the future of audio storytelling? And Chené, I'll start with you this time and then wrap with you.
Well, I love audio storytelling, and the reason why I love it is because I think it's interactive. Whenever you are listening to something, especially with Foley, which is sound effects and music, you are no longer just, the movie is not telling you what it is. You have to participate with your own imagination, and which is why I love audio storytelling.
Yes.
So I'm going to continue to do that, and one of the things that I'm currently working on is I'm writing a story, which is a biopic about Dorothea Tolles. Dorothea Tolles was the pioneering black female model who was one of the first black female models to ever be allowed into the fashion houses in Europe. She was Christian Dior's muse.
Wow.
And very few people know about her. And I think that it's important for us to know, not just about the first pioneering black model, but for a lot of the things that black women have been doing for decades in this country and nobody talks about.
Yes.
So yeah, that's my number one thing that I'm working on.
That sounds exciting. I can't wait for that. That's amazing. And what
Yeah,
else?
and for me, it's doing some different stuff, but even expanding the prophecy. The initial vision that I had for the prophecy was that I wanted to create like the Marvel Cinematic Universe for the Bible.
Love
And I was like,
that.
so I wanted to be, so that's what it started as. So I have some spinoffs that's happening within that, and obviously I'm doing the prophecy as a TV series now that Carrie's starring in. So it's gonna be, so it'll be a live action version of that. So you see, like I said, you get to see the full process. And outside of that, I'm just, I play both in TV and film, and so I'm just continuing to build, continuing to create.
I love that. I love that. I am so excited to continue to follow you all's journey. How can we stay connected with you all? And I know there's a lot of creatives in this room who are future writers, future TV and filmmakers, can they DM you and ask you questions?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Look, I go back and I go back and speak to like a lot of the film schools all the time. But look, any ways that I'm able to be helpful, and you can watch as well and support. I think that's another way as well, because supporting gets us on these type of platforms where you can speak and get to build a dialogue and get to understand and know people. So I think that's the biggest way, honestly. I think to be able to watch the things we're doing. Yeah, for sure.
And can they follow you on Instagram and stuff?
Yeah, for sure. I don't post a lot, but you know what I mean?
That's all right.
I'm there, you know what I mean? But I'm there. But
it's your name, Randy?
It's Randy.McKinnon. Simple.
Perfect.
Yeah, and if you like, you can definitely hit me up at Instagram. But I also have a production company called aileronfilms.com. And if you have some stories that might be pretty dope, we're open.
There you go.
Yeah,
I love that. Well, Chené and Randy, thank you all so much. You all can check out The Prophecy Season 2 and All Things Undone now, these Audible Originals on Audible. And make sure you all support more and more storytellers on the Audible Original platform. And you never know, one day you might get your story on Audible as well. We thank you so much for being here, and we'll see y'all soon.
Thank you.
In the city